He didn't even knock. The door to my office flew open like a scene from a bad drama, and there he was, Caleb, the new director, with that tight smile that never reached his eyes. Behind him stood an HR rep I barely recognized. And just like that, the temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. "I need everyone's attention," he said, loud enough for my whole team to hear. I stood up slowly, confused. My laptop was still open. I had just been tweaking the closing slides for Friday's big client pitch, the one I'd poured 3 months of my life into. The one Greg, our biggest client, said could define our future partnership. The one I was leading. But none of that seemed to matter now. "Emma," Caleb said, locking eyes with me in front of my whole department. "Effective immediately, your employment here is terminated." Laughter. I actually laughed. I thought it was a joke. But no one else was laughing. "What?" I said, my voice suddenly thin. "Why?" He didn't answer. Just turned to the HR woman beside him, who handed me a sealed envelope and said, "You'll find the details inside. You have 10 minutes to collect your things." I looked at my team, half of them frozen in place, the others already glancing awkwardly down at their keyboards. No one moved. No one spoke. It was like a spell had been cast, and I was the only one awake inside the nightmare. I couldn't stop my hands from shaking as I slid my laptop shut. The same laptop that held my pitch deck, the one that was supposed to be presented on Friday. I reached for my coffee mug, the one Lena gave me that said Creative Queen in glitter letters, and dropped it into a box someone had conveniently brought in. Planned. This had been planned. Then came the final cut. My phone buzzed in my jacket pocket. I glanced down. "Greg, looking forward to Friday. We trust you." I blinked. My throat closed up. I looked back at Caleb. "Greg doesn't even know yet, does he?" He didn't answer. Just smiled like this was some kind of victory. As I walked past my team with my box of things, I met their eyes. Ethan, who I mentored straight out of college. Priya, who once cried in this very office because she didn't think she could handle a big account until I helped her land it. Not one of them moved. Were they scared? Were they told not to say anything? I stepped into the elevator, and the moment the doors closed, I finally exhaled. The walls seemed to close in, pressing the truth against my chest. I'd just been fired. Publicly. Without warning. Right before the biggest pitch of my career. Why? Why me? Why now? And why like that? Something deeper was going on. This wasn't about performance. I knew my numbers, my results. I had built this team. This campaign was mine. He was up to something. As the elevator beeped past each floor, a dozen questions formed in my mind. Had he planned to steal the presentation? Was he using HR to cover his tracks? Was this personal? I stepped out into the lobby, the sunlight from outside blinding me for a moment. I stood there, gripping the cardboard box like it held pieces of me. I thought of Friday, of Greg, of the pitch that was now in Caleb's hands. He didn't just fire me. He tried to erase me. But I wasn't going to disappear quietly. And I had a feeling this story wasn't over yet. I didn't go home right away. I sat in my car, still gripping the box like a lifeline. I kept hearing Caleb's voice over and over, effective immediately, like it was stuck on a broken loop inside my head. But the worst part? The silence. From everyone. I wasn't just fired. I was erased. Quietly. Neatly. Like I'd never mattered. But I did matter. And deep down, I knew this wasn't about some policy violation or performance issue. This was personal. And to understand why he did it, you need to understand who I am and how I got here. My name is Emma Carter, and I built my career from the ground up. No favors, no shortcuts. Just ideas, late nights, and too much coffee. I wasn't born with connections. I earned every client, every campaign, every ounce of respect. Over the years, my work had landed 6 major accounts. I had a team that trusted me, a rhythm that worked, and a reputation I was proud of. But reputations are dangerous in the wrong eyes. Especially insecure ones. Caleb arrived 3 months ago. He didn't come with warmth or curiosity. He came with spreadsheets, buzzwords, and a mission to streamline inefficiencies. That was his phrase.
Polished. Corporate.
Harmless on the surface, but I've been in this game long enough to hear what it really meant.
Cut people.
Grab credit. Climb up. At first, I stayed out of his way. But we couldn't avoid each other forever. After all, he needed results, and I delivered results. Whether he liked it or not, I was the key to several accounts that kept the company's lights on. Still, something shifted the day he joined our campaign strategy meeting for the Greg account. I remember it clearly. I had just pitched an idea that made the whole room light up, a full-circle, values-first campaign that positioned Greg's company as not just a brand, but a movement. The team loved it. Greg loved it. The CEO was even copied on the approval thread. But when Caleb stood up to summarize the meeting for the record, he said something that made my skin crawl. "I'm glad we could pull this concept together so quickly," he said, like it had magically appeared. "This is the kind of work I want to see more of." No mention of me. Not even a nod. I should have stayed silent. I should have let it go. But I didn't. I smiled, polite, professional, and said, "Actually, Caleb, just for clarity, that concept came from the creative meeting last Friday. I brought it to Greg on Monday." The room went still. It wasn't what I said. It was that I said it in front of others. And that, I think, is when the war began. After that, things got strange. He'd leave me off key emails. Cancel meetings last minute. Reassign junior staff without telling me. Tiny cuts. Easy to ignore if you weren't looking, but I was. And I saw it clearly. He was trying to make me irrelevant. But I didn't expect him to go this far. To fire me before the biggest client presentation of the quarter, and to do it in front of the team. That's when it clicked. He didn't want me gone. He wanted my work.
He wanted my pitch.
He wanted my win. But he didn't want me standing in the room when it happened. He thought that if he erased me fast enough, loud enough, no one would ask questions. No one would notice. And by the time Greg walked in on Friday, the campaign would already be his. Only he forgot one thing. Greg trusted me, not him. And that meant I wasn't out of the story just yet. When I finally got home that day, I didn't cry. I didn't scream or throw things or eat a tub of ice cream like in the movies. I just sat on the floor, box still in my lap, still wearing my work heels, still hearing Caleb's voice in my head like a taunt on repeat. It was so sudden, so clean, like someone pulled a fire alarm and the world just kept moving without me. I stared at the wall for hours. My phone sat next to me, silent. No calls, no messages. Not even a single "Are you okay?" from the team I had led, protected, and fought for. I didn't blame them. I knew how fear worked. Caleb wanted obedience, not loyalty. He made that clear the moment he used public humiliation as strategy. But that kind of silence still hurts. You don't realize how loud it is until it fills every room. The next day, my parents called. I couldn't bring myself to tell them. I said I was taking a few days off. Just clearing my head, I said. My dad asked, "Still getting ready for Friday's big pitch?" I lied.
Yeah.
But Friday wasn't mine anymore. It belonged to Caleb now. Or so he thought. Later that night, I met Lena at our usual late-night diner. She was my best friend, my old college roommate, and the only person who didn't treat ambition like a threat. She listened as I told her everything. How Caleb fired me, how the team said nothing, and how my pitch deck was still sitting in that office like a stolen diary. She leaned back in the booth and crossed her arms. "That snake is going to stand in front of Greg and pretend he created your work." "Probably," I said, stirring my coffee. "He knows Greg trusts me. That deck was tailor-made for their brand voice, for their values. He's banking on Greg not asking questions." Lena raised an eyebrow. "Do you really think Greg won't notice?" I hesitated. "I don't know. He might. But it'll be too late. Once the deal's signed, I'm erased. Officially."
She leaned in.
"Then don't wait. Fight back." I shook my head. "If I speak now, it'll look like bitterness. Just another fired employee with a grudge. But if I wait, it might look like justice." She stared at me, eyes narrow. "So, what's the plan?" That was the moment it started forming. The beginning of something sharp.
Strategic.
The moment I stopped thinking like the victim and started thinking like the strategist I was. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining Caleb in the boardroom, standing at the head of the table with my slides, my data, my campaign voice coming out of his mouth. And Greg, nodding, maybe smiling, thinking everything was still okay. Except it wouldn't be okay. Because Caleb didn't understand something critical. This wasn't just a pitch to me. It was personal. I knew Greg's company inside out. I had spent weeks researching every campaign they'd ever launched. I'd crafted the message, the tone, the storytelling structure, everything, to feel like them.
Caleb couldn't replicate that.
He could only copy it. And copies always fall apart under pressure. 2 days later, I found out what I feared most. Caleb was still using my pitch. One of my old contacts, quietly loyal, sent me a message. They're rehearsing it now. Word for word. He's saying it's his. I sat there staring at my phone. That was the moment the fire inside me lit all the way up. He wasn't just erasing me. He was weaponizing my voice to climb higher. And suddenly, the silence I'd been sitting in for days turned into something else. Focus. He thought I was done. Forgotten. Replaced. But what he didn't realize was that I still had one last move to make. And I was going to make it count. The second I saw that message, they're rehearsing it now. Word for word. I knew I couldn't just sit back anymore. He was stealing my work. And worse, he was going to deliver it to Greg, the one person who still believed in me, without blinking. But I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to make noise on social media or send angry emails or beg for my job back.
No.
I was going to do what I do best. Outthink him. I called Lena the next morning.
We're doing this, I said.
We're making a new version of the pitch. A better one. Stronger.
Cleaner.
Something so sharp it cuts through everything Caleb's trying to pass off as his. She didn't even hesitate. I'm in. For 3 days, we worked from my living room. Whiteboards, sticky notes, coffee cups, printouts. All over the floor like a war room made of paper and caffeine. We didn't just rework the deck. We rebuilt it from the ground up. I added a narrative thread that Caleb never understood. A message that tied directly into Greg's personal values, the kind you can't fake or guess your way through. And then, just to make it undeniable, we added proof. Time-stamped drafts. Version histories. Voice memos. Internal notes that showed my thought process from day one. Dates, tags, even original artwork. It wasn't just a pitch, it was a paper trail. Lena paused on the second day, holding a page in her hand. Do you think Greg will even get to see this? What if it doesn't reach him in time? That question sat with me longer than I wanted it to. I couldn't walk into that meeting room. I wasn't allowed in the building. I didn't have a title or a badge anymore. But I still had trust. And trust opens doors. I pulled out my laptop and started drafting an email. It was simple, careful,
direct.
Subject: Friday's presentation, just one question. Hi, Greg. I know you're expecting a presentation this Friday. You deserve the best. That's why I won't ask you to cancel it or question it. Just do one thing for me. Ask the right question. Whose idea was this? That's all.
Emma.
I didn't send it right away. I read it over at least 20 times. I wanted it to be perfect. Not bitter, not emotional, just enough to plant the seed of doubt. Finally, I hit send. Then I printed out the new pitch. I sealed it in a folder with all the backup proof, dates, versions, originals. Lena dropped it off at Greg's office personally, no logos, no drama. Just one clean delivery marked, private, time-sensitive. Caleb had no idea what was coming. He thought I was gone. Thought I was sitting at home nursing a broken ego. But I wasn't broken. I was preparing. And while he was rehearsing my words, I was building something stronger, something with a soul he could never fake. The night before the presentation, I couldn't sleep. I kept picturing the moment, the slide transitions, the applause, the fake confidence Caleb would wear like cologne. I imagined him pacing in front of the room, using the pitch I gave birth to, pretending like he was the genius behind it. But what I couldn't imagine was what he'd do when Greg asked that one question. Because if he lied, Greg would know. And if he told the truth, the entire room would. Either way, the spotlight would burn. And this time, it wouldn't be on me. Friday came fast. I didn't get much sleep the night before. Every hour felt like a countdown, every second ticking closer to the moment I'd been forced to surrender. Only now, it wasn't surrender anymore. It was strategy. I wasn't in the office that morning. I wasn't at the head of the table like I used to be. I was nowhere near the conference room I had once called mine. But my words were. My voice, my strategy, my campaign, they were about to speak whether I was in the room or not. The presentation was scheduled for 10 a.m. sharp. At 9:45, I sat in a coffee shop 2 blocks from the office, phone screen dark, heart hammering so loud it felt like a drum in my chest. I didn't know how Greg would respond. I didn't even know if he'd read my email or opened the folder Lena had dropped off. But I knew him. And I knew he was smart enough to ask the right question when it mattered most. Back in the boardroom, Caleb was doing what he did best, pretending. He wore his tailored suit like armor and greeted everyone with charm. Greg was already seated, calm, polite, with that sharp business smile that made it hard to tell what he was thinking. Miles, the CEO, was there too, along with a few senior partners. Caleb began. He launched into the pitch like he owned it. Slide by slide, word for word, he walked them through my campaign. He repeated the same emotional hooks, the same phrases I spent weeks polishing. He hit every point almost perfectly. Almost. Because perfection isn't about copying. It's about understanding. And Caleb didn't understand the story. He didn't feel it. He didn't live in it the way I had. And as the minutes passed, the room grew quieter. Not in a good way. In a watching too closely kind of way. Greg sat there, nodding slowly, hands folded. And then he smiled. But it wasn't a smile of approval. It was a loaded smile. The kind that carries weight behind it. The kind that comes right before someone drops a truth bomb on the room. He leaned forward. "This is brilliant," Greg said. "Really impressive work." Caleb smiled wider, finally relaxing. He thought he had it in the bag. Then Greg added, casually, "Just one thing. Who created this campaign?"
Boom.
The whole room paused. Caleb's face changed. Just for a second. "But I know him. And I know fear when I see it." He blinked. Smiled nervously. "Well, the team collaborated on it," he said. "Group effort, of course." Greg nodded. "So, who led the creative? Who brought the core idea?" There it was. Caleb hesitated. Then stammered, "I mean, it came from multiple brainstorms. We all contributed." Greg didn't blink. He just reached into his briefcase, pulled out a folder, and slid it onto the table. "This folder," he said, "was delivered to me on Wednesday. It has version history, voice memos, sketches, and timestamps from over the past 2 months. It includes the original campaign structure, the one I'm seeing right now. It's signed by someone not in this room." The folder was labeled, "Property of Emma Carter. Original concept files." You could hear a pin drop. Caleb opened his mouth. Nothing came out. Miles turned his head slowly. "Is this true?"
Caleb started to speak.
I wasn't aware she. But it was over. Greg looked at him, calm but sharp. "You tried to sell me someone else's voice. Do you think I don't notice when the soul of a message is missing?" Then he looked around the table. "We're not signing anything today unless Emma is back on this account." That's when the door opened. And I stepped in. The whole room turned toward me, like I'd walked out of a storm. I wasn't supposed to be there. But I was. And I didn't say a word. Because I didn't need to. The moment I walked into that room, every eye turned to me. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. I could feel the air tighten like someone had pulled a cord around the whole boardroom. Caleb looked like he'd seen a ghost, and in some ways, maybe he had. Because I wasn't the version of Emma he thought he buried. I was the one who came back to remind him that truth doesn't stay quiet forever. Greg leaned back slightly in his chair, arms folded. "Welcome, Emma," he said, with the kind of smile that held weight. "Glad you could join us." Miles, our CEO, still looked confused. Shocked even, but not angry. More curious. He turned to Caleb. "Did you know she was coming?" Caleb stammered. "And no, She's not even with the company anymore, Miles cut him off. Apparently, she's been with the client the whole time. I finally stepped forward, just far enough to face the table, but still near the door. My heart was steady, my voice even. I didn't come to take anything back, I said calmly. I just came to protect what was mine. Greg nodded slowly, then looked at Miles. This company built a reputation on trust. Emma's campaign didn't just understand our brand, it understood us. We only want to move forward if she's involved. Period. That word echoed. Period. A decision. A line in the sand. And suddenly, Caleb looked very small in his expensive suit. Miles cleared his throat. Caleb, we'll need to speak privately. Caleb blinked. Wait, Miles, I've worked for weeks on this. You worked on her work, Miles replied, sharper now. And I don't need to tell you what kind of legal and ethical line that crosses. The HR rep from earlier, yes, the same one who escorted me out, stood and gently gestured for Caleb to follow her out. This time, she wasn't holding an envelope. She was holding a clipboard. He didn't argue. He just walked out, eyes down. And just like that, the man who tried to erase me vanished behind a door. For a second, the room stayed quiet. Greg was watching me, expectant. Miles turned to me. Emma, he said, I want to offer you your position back. Full reinstatement. And a formal apology. I should have felt triumphant. I should have felt relief. But I didn't. I felt done. Because what I realized in that moment was this. I didn't want my job back. I wanted my worth recognized. I smiled gently. Thank you, Miles. But I'm not here to return. He frowned slightly. Then, what do you want? I turned to Greg. Respect. Ownership. And the freedom to do the work I believe in, without someone breathing over my shoulder trying to take credit. Greg gave me a knowing look. Then come work with us. Independently. I'll set up a consulting agreement by end of day. Double your old salary. Your name. Your voice. No middlemen. It hit me then. I didn't just survive the sabotage. I'd evolved past it. I wasn't stepping back into an old title. I was stepping into a new legacy. I nodded once. Let's do it. Greg extended his hand across the table. I shook it. And just like that, a new beginning formed from the ashes of everything Caleb tried to bury. As I turned to leave the boardroom, Lena was waiting outside. She gave me a quiet smile. Holding up her phone, she had recorded Caleb's entire fumble, every lie, every stutter. I thought you might want this, she said. I just smiled. No need. I've already won. Because the truth? Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes it walks back into the room calm, quiet and undeniable. 6 months later, I don't even recognize my life. In the best way. The consulting deal Greg offered turned out to be just the beginning. After the presentation fallout, word got around. Quietly but quickly. Not just about Caleb but about me. About how I handled it. About how I didn't fight dirty. I just let the truth speak louder than the noise. And the truth kept echoing. By month 2, I had 3 clients. By month 4, I had a wait list. Now I run my own boutique agency, small, intentional, sharp as a blade. We don't chase every project. We pick clients whose values align with their message. It's not about chasing the biggest dollar anymore. It's about doing work that matters. Lena's my co-founder. We work from a studio downtown with high ceilings, soft music, and a little coffee bar we built ourselves. Some days it still feels unreal. How fast things changed. But deep down, I know it wasn't fast. I worked for this. Through the years of unpaid overtime, through being interrupted in meetings, through the 1,000 small moments of being underestimated, and one massive moment of being erased, I kept building, kept believing. Even when no one was clapping. Especially then. Now, I don't need anyone to clap. My work speaks. And the right people hear it. Last week, I passed my old office building on the way to a client dinner. The hallway directory had been updated. Caleb's name was gone. No title. No trace. He disappeared as quietly as he came. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just walked by, heels clicking, phone buzzing, mind clear. Because I've learned something about revenge. It's overrated. The best revenge is never needing it. It's being free, respected, at peace. It's knowing that even when they try to bury you, they forget one thing. You were a seed all along. You're still here? Good. Because there's something I need to say. Something no one told me back when everything fell apart. If you're sitting in the middle of your own storm, wondering why people you trusted went quiet, if you're asking yourself how someone less talented, less kind, or less honest ended up ahead of you, it's not because you weren't enough. Sometimes people get threatened by the quiet power you carry, by the way you lead without shouting, by how others trust you without being told to, by how your work speaks when you don't have to. And when they can't become you, they try to replace you. That's what happened to me. I was silenced, pushed aside, stripped of my title and my seat at the table on purpose. Not because I failed, but because I stood too strong. But here's the truth they never expect. You don't need the table. You can build your own. You can handpick who sits with you. You can rise without asking for permission. So, if you're in your version of that elevator ride I took, the one where your whole world changed in 30 seconds, hold on. Don't beg.
Don't break. Don't disappear.
Just wait. Wait and work. Let your talent stack quietly in the background. Let your name carry weight, even in rooms you've been shut out of. Let your silence be strategy, not surrender. And when the moment comes, you won't need to prove a thing. You'll walk back in, calm, clear, and undeniable. To anyone who's ever been pushed out to make room for mediocrity, just survive until Friday. Because sometimes that's all it takes. The truth has a way of finding its voice. And when it does, it won't whisper. It will echo.